I would like to call the meeting to order of the UDC. It's 6:30 on May 13, 2015. First, we need a roll call, please.
Here.
Ms. Sullivan?
Here.
Ms. Emerton?
Here.
Mr. Winchester? Nicole Ream?
Here.
Joel Condon?
Here.
Ed Leonetti?
Here.
And Joe Miller is excused.
Okay, thank you. I would like to announce that we have a quorum this evening. Next in the agenda, we're moving towards the minutes. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes? We don't have the minutes. Did they review the agenda? Okay, sorry, we do not have any minutes today. That's good. Next in the agenda, do we have any disclosures?
Yes, Madam Chair. On case number 2015-0051, Amendment to Pedestrian Bridge, I am a professor at the University of Alaska Anchorage, and I was recused from initial consideration of this case and will do so again.
Any more disclosures? Okay, Nicole.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. On the consent agenda, under resolutions for approval, Resolution 2015-008 with the related case sorry, they gave the same number. It was 2014 is when this started, but Chester Creek Sports Complex parking area and Mulcahy Stadium reconstruction, our firm is managing that project, so I will not, I'll be abstaining from the vote.
Okay, thank you. Can we get a motion to excuse Commissioner Joel to participate in the pedestrian project? Oh, he's already, okay, sorry. Yes. Oh. Okay, now we are, this is not a public hearing. We are moving to the 1% art submission review. We'll start with George M. Sullivan Power Plant. Okay, there's anyone here representing the 1% art submission?
Through the chair, there doesn't need to be. Just the commission needs to look at it and see if they see any safety or maintenance concerns.
Okay, we have two projects. The first one was the George M. Sullivan Power Plant. They're planning to add a mural and some LED lights. There was a few questions in regards of maintenance and mainly maintenance. If there's any other questions or concerns about safety for that project? No. And then the second project was the next was high school CT atrium. Do we have any concerns with that sculpture hanging out of the atrium? No. So do we need to do a motion to approve this, Sharon?
Yes, just to say that you don't have any issues with safety or maintenance for those two projects.
Okay, we don't have any issues of maintenance with those projects. So we are okay to move to the next item. And okay, can I ask a motion, please, to approve those two projects? We have a motion to move forward from Jim Sawhill and a second by Joel Condon. Do you guys have anything to say?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would move that we accept both these 1% ARP projects. It's been reviewed by the commission. No safety concerns were expressed by any commission members. I think these should go forward, and we should accept these.
Okay, thank you. Next is the approval for the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? We have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Monica Emerton. I need a second. And we're getting a second by Ed Leonelli. Do you guys would like to speak to your motion?
I move to approve the 3 items on the consent agenda as it stands.
Thank you. Okay, we're back to regular agenda. Okay. Okay, if there's any objections? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay, now we're moving to the regular agenda. We will be reviewing case 2015-0028, an amendment to an existing site plan for the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. This is not a public hearing. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center, formerly Big Game, is requesting modification of their final site plan approval. The Commission approved the original site plan in 1989, and that approval is found on page 21 of your packet. The 2009 Turnagain Arm Comprehensive Plan, Portage Land Use Plan Map, supports the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center in its current location, and the center, the site plan, this approval it complies with or is supported by goals 2, 3, and 4 of the plan's policies. The effects of the proposal on the area surrounding the site. The proposed site plan shows limited development, which is in character with the rural area surrounding the petition site. The department's recommending approval of this site plan subject to conditions 1 through 7 on page 4 and 5 of your packet. Condition 1 is a standard condition of approval. Condition 2 says revise the site plan to exclude the smaller portion or a separate parcel of the small parcel of property. It's a little less than 3 acres. It's not a part of this approval. And then resolve with the traffic engineer where paving should be done on the site. And then condition 4, provide a landscape plan showing the parking lot interior landscaping. That's something required by the zoning. Condition 5, provide visual enhancement landscaping between the driveway and the abutting property. Condition 6, move the proposed intern housing away from the PLI setback. Condition 7, resolve with Building Safety Division the need for any after-the-fact land use permits for structures on the site. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions to the staff? Yeah, Nicole Rim. Oh, for the last one. So we have Ed Leonelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question about the yard setback, side yard setback, I believe is the reference. The PLI district has a laundry list of setbacks, and I was curious if the petitioner had a conversation with you regarding those and if it was resolved.
We certainly had a dialogue, the petitioner's representatives and me. I don't believe that there was much discussion about the PLI setback. I'm going to look at it now.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's a few different ways to go around the setback, and my thought process here is that if obviously the petitioner has a plan, and if that plan is to put that building there, we don't want to prohibit them. We want to help them to make it.
Oh, for
compliant.
sure. We don't want to place a requirement unnecessarily.
Right.
Yeah. So minimum yard requirements are as follows: front yard, side yard, rear yard. The side yard would be the one that's the subject of this. This is a minimum of 25 feet or not less than the side yard of the abutting use district, whichever is greater. And so that's 25 feet in this case, because the R11, it would be less. Let's see. When the abutting district is PLI, residential otherwise, equal to the minimum side yard required in the district abutting the side yard.
And then on B, reduce the property share and common side lot line where the reduction of that allow PLI under the same ownership. That could possibly apply. C,
If it was under the same ownership, but in this case it's not. Yeah, there's no debate about that.
I thought the parcels are all under the same ownership.
So the property abutting the highway is owned by the National Park Service. The large main parcel is owned by the Conservation Center. There is about a 3-acre parcel, a little sort of parcel of land on the side of the site. And that's where the condition of approval came from. The approval does not include that parcel. They submitted a site plan including it, but that needs to be pulled out of this approval. It wasn't a part of the original approval, and currently we don't have support from the property owner. And I could go into that whole issue if the commission would like.
I was just, the petitioner can talk about it as well when they're up here. So the small sliver of R11 is what you're explaining is not part of the same ownership?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Do we have any additional questions? No? Okay. Is the petitioner here? Can you come to the forward, please, and will you state your name and spell it for the record?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Marco Zaccaro. Last name is spelled Z-A-C-C-A-R-O, and I'm here representing AWCC. Also here with me is Alison Gordy from Z Architects and Mike Miller, the owner of AWCC. Just in regard to the last question, we have a letter from our attorney regarding that small parcel of property. Would you guys like to have a copy of that? And we have enough to hand out for you to review if you'd like.
Do anyone needs a copy of that letter?
Okay. So Alison will go ahead and hand that out to you now.
Thank you.
So good evening, Commissioners. My name is Marco Zaccaro with Z Architects, based in Girdwood. With me, like I mentioned, is Mike Miller, Executive Director and founder of Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. as well as Allison Gordy. She's the one who actually put the application together for us, so she'll be able to answer more questions. We are here representing the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center requesting an amendment to their existing site plan. This is a private development on a privately owned piece of property. We are presenting to the UDC instead of the Planning and Zoning Commission because the parcel is zoned PLI. This private development is run by the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center, AWCC. AWCC is a nonprofit public education and wildlife rehabilitation corporation located in Portage at the apex of Turnagain Arm. Mike Miller and his partner founded Big Game Alaska on this site in 1989 and opened to the public in 1993. In 1999, Big Game Alaska formed AWCC, and in 2007, the corporation changed its name to AWCC. Since then, AWCC has expanded tremendously and outgrown the original site plan and is providing ever more educational opportunities and larger conservation efforts, including the recent very successful wood bison reintroduction, which you may have heard about in the news. We are pursuing an amendment to the original site plan to accommodate this increasing growth of the center. The AWCC is located on U.S. Survey 3738, and it covers approximately 118 acres with access to about 42 acres of land leased from the Forest Service adjacent to the property. Let's see if so this is AWCC property here, and then this is the Forest Service land. They also have some access to some land across Placer River for their wood bison efforts. AWCC is zoned PLI, which is intended to provide for organizations such as zoos. However, AWCC is more of a farm in operation than a zoo. It has large herds, requiring constant adjustment to adapt to day-to-day needs of big game animal herds. So in the course of their operations, they've been building sheds and shacks around the property to accommodate, sort of farm infrastructure after they received their original site plan. So there's a lot of small buildings and shacks and sheds that are over 100 square feet, but have not gone through the normal municipal permitting as would be required in a land use permit area. Part of this land use, the site plan amendment is to help clear up all those outstanding small land use permit issues. The site is rural and about 11 miles from the nearest population center of Girdwood. The property is basically flat with about a 2-foot elevation gain across the entire site, with the exception of tidal sloughs, riverbanks, and a few man-made features. AWCC provides public education opportunities for user groups and provides programs for visitors, tour groups, and schools. In addition to having a permanent staff, the center employs several interns every season to assist with educational programs, animal care, and day-to-day operations while earning college credits. The center is open year-round during daylight hours, closing at 5 p.m. in the winter to accommodate shorter days, and staying open until 8 p.m. in the summer to take advantage of the daylight. In our narrative, you'll see a discussion about parking lot lighting. We're going to ask for a variance from the parking lot lighting. We would like the UDC to support us in that for a number of reasons. One, the center is not open when it's dark. The lights at night bother the animals. Their parking lots are near caribou enclosures. And the site is at the apex of Turnagain Arm, as visual from Bird Point all the way through Turnagain Pass. If we lit up our parking lots and the lighting was on at night, it would have a tremendous visual impact, which is contrary to the Turnagain Arm Comprehensive Plan to have reduced site lighting and to reduce the visual impacts of projects along the visual corridor of the Seward Highway. And just beyond that, the fact that the lights would be turned off at 5 when the visitors are gone, so that they, there would be lighting on site, but it would essentially would never be used. For the future development, we are looking forward to several improvements on the site to increase AWCC's ability to provide education and conservation to in Alaska. AWCC has access from the Seward Highway here right now. We're improving the access with the Seward Highway reconstruction, providing a turn lane here, both north and south. It's a relatively dangerous curve right here. It's blind coming up from the south. So there will be a new driveway access, gravel driveway. This driveway will be deleted. We're instituting several, right now there's a series of one-way loops that go through the site that's vehicle related, and pedestrians walk along these paths. We're introducing a series of pathways that will lead visitors along Placer River and complement the vehicle traffic, but separate the pedestrians from the vehicle traffic. And I don't know if you've been down there, but the first phase of Bears 1 is an elevated platform, and that's the initial step on these pedestrian loops. Other improvements to the site will be a village core, which will be we're in the design phases for Bison Hall, which is an educational facility providing food service, playground, several small cabins that are going to be relocated to the site, historic cabins, 2 greenhouses to grow fruits and vegetables for visitors as well as animals, enhanced small animal pens, and then links to the trail system to help get people out of the cars and circulate on site. Bears Interpretive Center in the far future. In this part of the site, somewhat separated from the village core, is what we call the Bears Center. The brown bears are located here. The brown bear pond is here. We've completed phase 1, which is the elevated boardwalk over the brown bear pen. Phase 2, which is tensile structure canopies. Phase 3, we are in design, which is a restroom facility, which we hope to start on this summer. And in the future, pending funding, and is not included in our site plan because the uncertainty of the funding, is the full interpretive center build out, which is about an 11,000 square foot facility with theaters and interpretive halls. And we have that listed as a possible. And when the funding becomes available for that, we'll come back to this body and apply for an amendment to our site plan at that time, mostly because of the parking impacts. So the improvements shown on this site master plan amendment, which you have, will enhance the experience and educational opportunities for AWCC's many visitors for several years to come. And we hope that you would approve this site plan amendment.
Good. Do we have any questions to the petitioner? Commissioner Rem?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure what's wrong with my button, but I'm invisible tonight. Hey, that works for me. Thank you. Sir, I'm sorry. I just had a question. So the AWCC, is it open year-round? Yes. It's open year-round. And what are the hours?
What are the winter hours, Mike?
It's 8 to 8 starting Mother's Day, and that'll be through about the 1st of October. And then it dwindles with the daylight down to just...
Can you please come forward and state your name and spell it for the record?
My name's Mike Miller, M-I-K-E-M-I-L-L-E-R. And to answer the question, we're open 12 hours a day throughout the summer. And then in the fall, the hours dwindle with the daylight, and in the spring they come back with the daylight. So in the shoulder seasons, we're probably open to just 6. But in the winter, we just pretty much close when it's dark, and those darkest months of the year.
So you're open like 8 to 8 in the summertime and 10 to 6 or 5 in the wintertime?
Probably 10 to 4.
So you literally open your gates when light hits, the
Right.
sun rises? Okay.
Yeah, we would open earlier because there's daylight in the morning, but nobody's up and about, and so, but we do close right at dark because we have to, because there's no use being open in the dark.
Have you, I know lighting, I appreciate not wanting to put lighting in your parking lot or in your pedestrian areas, but have you considered lighting with sensors that turn off at or turn on at twilight, turn off when the daylight hits?
We have one of those on this one barn structure, and the buildings out there have outdoor lighting if you turn them off and on, but we just use that when necessary. I mean, we have a Lynx enclosure that's part of the gift store, and we put lighting in there, but I don't think we've ever turned it on since we installed it. And we lock double gates. We have 4 exterior double gates, and all those are locked at night so that, the public can't come on the facility at night. It's just myself and my family that live there, and the interns in the winter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to expand on that, the gate is at the Seward Highway, so there's no public access to the parcel
Right.
at all.
Okay.
We have another question, Commissioner Condon.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Madam Chair, through the chair, I'm wondering if you've got a dialogue going with the Department of Transportation about the, access and egress from the site. I noticed on your site plan, it's very clear how you would get into the site from the Seward Highway if you're traveling towards the Kenai. But I'm wondering what happens when you leave the site and try and travel to Anchorage. That seems like a hazardous maneuver, and if you're planning on bringing a substantial increase in users of the center, then that interchange seems like a critical element that needs to be, carefully considered.
We have been in discussions with DOT as an integral part of they're reconstructing the entire Seward Highway at the end of Turnagain Arm, and they're relocating the highway. They're actually moving it a little bit different from what we show here. We had a civil engineer design this, and then subsequent to that, we don't show the current highway plans because they're a little bit in flux, but I believe it's 2017 is when they want to reconstruct the highway.
Yeah, that's correct. They're taking all the bridges out, and this one bridge, where's the Placer? This bridge here is going to be right here, and the Placer River Bridge is going to be gone. We look at the Placer River from our house right here. But that project, it's 11 bridges that they're replacing, and they will put our new entrance in for us. They have a turn lane going south and a center lane going north already for safety. And the project got delayed, and once it's awarded in 2017, it could be 2020 till the contractor, if he wants to do that last. But we have all the permits, and we're putting in the driveway ourselves this summer. We are working with Granite Construction at mile 100, and they're taking those corners off and taking all the fill down here to do it, because by 2017, somebody will get hurt at our intersection. It should have happened already, and we don't want it to happen. It's not worth building the Wildlife Center if a family gets killed. So we're proactively taking care of that on our own this summer.
Okay, good, thanks.
Thank you. When you guys speak, please speak to that microphone because we need to have it for the record. Next, we have a question from Commissioner Sawhill.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. We have 7 conditions of approval that were recommended for this project. Are you okay with them as written? You want any of them changed?
Yeah, I'd like condition 7 to be looked at in our discussions with the director of the planning department. We worked out this condition 7 but I believe, and Francis may be able to correct me, we were going to have 1 year to resolve these after-the-fact land use permits for the individual projects that have not been permitted, but have been built already. But in the meanwhile, we could apply for new land use permits, because initially the permitting department wasn't going to let us apply for any new land use permits until the old ones were cleared. And what that would do would not allow us to build the turn lane, safety, things of that sort that we need to implement now. So in our discussions with Erica, I said, okay, well, we want to move forward with the new projects. We fully intend to clear up the old projects. Can we do it concurrently? And she said, yes, as long as you get it done within a year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I'd like, if possible, to have condition 7 changed, or is that implicit in the condition?
Through the chair, Mr. Zaccaro, yeah, I mean, you correctly characterized the situation, and planning and building safety division supports everything that you said. You raise a good point. I don't know that we need to tinker with the wording of the condition of approval, but the commission, just to make it crystal clear, could make a finding that this project the site plan should be able to be acted upon concurrently with resolving after-the-fact building permits. That would send a clear message that the commission is okay with that if they are. But alternatively, you could reword the condition.
Madam Chair, I was just going to chime in a little bit on that same topic. I was going to propose just deleting the comment or the condition. I don't quite understand if you have current building permits that aren't closed, or if they're going to come back onto your site and say, oh, that's not compliant, you need to fix it.
Well, there's several different classes. There's buildings that have been permitted and have land use permits. There's buildings, sheds, agriculture buildings. The largest one is actually the owner's house that were built since '89 that never received a land use permit under the land use permit district regulations, which is more than 100 square feet. And then there are projects that are ongoing that we obtain a permit for but have not been closed out yet, and we're actively closing those out. Intern housing shelter, we're in final stages of closing that out. The elevated walkway, we're going to close that permit out. There's paperwork that we have to submit to flood elevation certificates, things like that. That will close those permits out. So there's 3 classes of buildings. I want to characterize 3 classes of buildings that are on site that are in various stages of having permit, have not had a permit, and are in permitting. And then there's our future projects that, like Bison Hall, which we'd like to start on this summer, that we've gone down and applied up for a land use permit for, and they said, no, you can't have a land use permit for this until you close out your old permits, which is fine. And then, and I don't know if they mentioned the unpermitted buildings. So they haven't mentioned the unpermitted buildings, but we're trying to be proactive. Considering there's so much going on this site, we decided that, the best way forward was just kind of bear ourselves to the planning department and building safety and say, this is what we got, how do we fix it all, without unduly slowing down our ongoing construction projects.
Thanks, that clarifies that. So I think it's good to reword that, Mr. Sahil. You still have the floor.
Yeah. It's always helpful if the petitioner has wording they would like us to use. Otherwise, we're trying to wing it, and it makes it a little
We could take a 5-minute break, too, if you need a minute to.
Are there any other conditions that you have objections to?
No, I think we're fine with all the other ones.
Thank you.
I will just like to put into the record that Commissioner Winchester arrived at 6:53. Now we have a question from Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to go back to the side yard setback. I have not read this letter, so can you briefly summarize this 3-page letter that would enlighten us on the property ownership?
Hi, my name is Allison Gordy. It's ALLISONGORDY, and I'll answer that question. Basically, the summary of that letter is that the track of ownership of that parcel, that R11 property, is a little bit muddled right now. There's somebody on record that currently only owns 2 portions of that total 4-acre lot. And Mike is working with a real estate attorney to resolve that with the current owners of record. And basically what it goes into is that the woman that's still alive is 95 years old and in a home. And so it's just a matter of clearing up the title and getting some documents signed. That's why it's blocked out as a separate parcel at this point, because there's no clear ownership.
Okay, so moving that building from that location would, or this recommendation number 6, basically moved that building from that location.
Yes.
What's that?
Proposed building.
Yes.
Proposed building.
Yes, because it's not currently built. So basically, our option as we see it is to either move it across the street, so we fulfill that 25-foot setback for the PLI district, or the title will clear up on this R11, and we can apply for a conditional use permit to add it to the current property that we're talking about. And then I don't know if you have to replat to redo lot lines, or if we would just have to move it.
Yeah, that's digressing a little bit, but the point is that if there's the code, I think it's important that as a commission we don't limit the constructability or the ability for a landowner to use their land as they see fit. Putting this condition on there basically says you can't do something, and it says you have to move that building. Now, if that property line changes, or if the ownership changes, then my interpretation of the code is that there is an opportunity to leave it where it is. So I was going to suggest striking that, or say resolve with staff the side yard setback for building blah, blah, blah. So that in the future, when the ownership does change, or if it doesn't, then you guys are resolving with staff rather than just completely moving a building arbitrarily without thinking of the future.
Are you good with that?
Amenable to
Yes,
that?
that sounds great.
So I will try to craft some language here towards that.
Great.
And I think that's it. Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions? No. Commissioner Condon?
Yeah, considering that intern housing, what is it, number 2 is the one in question, and intern housing number 1 is quite a long ways away, it seems that there's, why is it so important to have intern housing 2 in that location?
Mike, he's more versed in the operations.
Intern housing 2 is the...
Next to the, yep.
And what was your question, sir?
I'm wondering why intern housing number 2 needs to be in that location if there is a conflict with the setback, and considering that intern housing 1 is quite a distance away, would it be a major inconvenience to simply move that away from the setback?
That's a good suggestion, and I don't see any trouble with that. Of course, if we don't have clear ownership of the land, we'd have to move, and because there's other locations that we can build close to where the first intern housing is. That 3-acre piece of land there, I purchased that in the the 90s, from a gentleman up behind Turning an Arm, retired fish and game biologist. and he was one of the owners, but he didn't have clear ownership. I thought I bought the piece of property. And then through the municipality, we've been talking through their legal department. They know it's a confusing piece of property because it was one piece of property that was homesteaded, and the man that homesteaded it, Goodman, back in the 60s, went down to Diamond Jim's and cut it up into 18 different little lots and sold them down there. And I bought 8 of them, and somehow it got the municipality titled into one person's name, and so it's one of those don't ask things, just go talk to her. And so I am going to Omaha, Nebraska next week to talk to this woman and try to straighten this confusing thing out. It's the simplest way to clear it up. Those kind of things happen all the time in Portage. It's a difficult piece of property, I think, and when I first got my permits in the early 90s, we're the last building in the municipality down there, and some of these things with permits to get brush clearing and fill permits and all that stuff. I know we're inside the municipality, but we're not building down on the park strip. And what Marco said, with us being a farm, I mean, that's how we developed it. The center was developed through the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and when we got the permits and built ponds, we took the fill out and because the fill was available, and built roads. And then with the Whittier rock slide that came down, we got acquired stuff from that. So it's just things that happened that we reacted. It wasn't intentional that I got into this situation that we're trying to clear up. And I know it's unfortunate, and I appreciate your tolerance with straightening this out. There have been barns that were built for a need, and needs come up all the time that once we have that need, we have to adhere to it. Like the wolverines that just came in, we have to build an enclosure and learn how to build a fence to keep them in. It's, we're not experts at this, but we try to be. And so with that stuff, we have to reapproach this body again once we get our plans solidified. It's a non-typical piece of property in the municipality, but we're trying to pull it together, and it seems to work. And we get a lot of assistance from the U.S. Forest Service with all the property that we've acquired from them. It's just grown in size.
Okay, so this condition 6, move the proposed intern housing to, you don't have a problem with that?
I don't think so, no.
It seems that would be an easy, if you're not too far along with it, it seems like a fairly easy fix.
Yeah, I'd like to, right over here would be a good spot here. We have 2 shelters here that is from USDA. It's required.
Can you get close to the microphone, please? Thank you.
That one spot where we built the first intern housing, there was 2 shelters there for the muskox and the moose. They each have to have shelters. And we took those buildings down to make one building, this intern housing. And we'll do the same over there with the elk and the muskox. There's 2 little shelters there that are old and almost historical now, but they're just dilapidated. So we like to reduce buildings, not add buildings, and try to incorporate them into one.
Okay.
I'm going to add that the intern housing is interns on the 2nd floor, but they're actually kind of barn structures on the 1st floor, and they're adjacent to animal enclosures. So like intern housing 1 here, the moose come in the 1st level. So we had this intern housing over here because there was that enclosure over here that had animals in it, so the animals could come into the 1st floor. But operationally, we put them where the operation suggests, and if Mike thinks that they would be just as functional over here, we're fine with that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I do appreciate your tolerance, but I can't emphasize enough that things change a lot down there. And, everything we talked about tonight might change halfway home. And like the bear center that we've been wanting to build on the property for years because of all the interest with bears, we're working with the Forest Service to redo the Baggage Bog Visitor Center because the Forest Service is going to close it down and they want us to take it over. So all of a sudden we've been pushing to build this interpretive center and go on you guys towards it with you guys, and then all of a sudden it comes to a stop because another idea came up. And those things seem like they're a little haphazard, but it's just pretty much responding to different opportunities that come along down there, like the wood bison and things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
I have to add, it's one of the most fluid and dynamic projects we've ever worked on.
Okay, Commissioner Lunelli?
If I could just chime in a little bit more on that, I was going to change the condition, and it sounds like, let me ask this question. If the property line wasn't there, would you put the building there?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Do we have any additional questions? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve? Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Condon and a second by Monica Emerton. Commissioner Joel Condon, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move to approve case 2015-0028 with conditions 1 through 6 and deleting condition 7.
Commissioner Emerton, would you like to speak to your motion?
I can. It would be best if you restate his motion, and then he can speak to his.
Okay, he wants to move and approve with condition 1 through 6, and he would like to delete condition number 7. He needs to Okay, now you need to speak to your motion.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a very dynamic project, ongoing development that's going on. I fully approve of all the effort that you put into making the Conservation Center what it is, and expanding it into the future and looking at all the various opportunities that present themselves. And yeah, I can understand the kind of fluidity, as you say, of the project, and I think that you should be encouraged to take the project forward, and I wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Emerton, would you like to talk?
Yes, I would like to speak to my second. I intend to support the motion. I am impressed with all you guys are able to deal with, and it seems like you're making the best of a hard situation. I would like to amend the motion, though, and make a motion to amend that actually does not require them to have the lighting in the parking lot, as it's not ever going to be used because the facility is not open at that time. It's essentially closed. So that is my motion to amend.
Can I get a second? Okay, I got motion to amend by Monica Emerton to remove all the lighting out of the sign, and a second by Jerry Winchester. Monica Emerton, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I obviously intend to support the amendment. It does seem like it would be a waste of money to have to put in the lighting if it's not ever going to be used, especially if it's upsetting to the animals, which are the reason you guys are there. So that's why I intend to support my amendment.
Commissioner Winchester, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I likewise intend to support the amendment. I think the funds would be much better spent on some of the animal conservation services there than on lighting that will never be used. Thank you.
Now we're moving forward to the first. Commissioner Sawhill?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't intend to support the amendment, although I agree that it's probably not a good idea to have lighting here. I think it's beyond our authority to make the determination on lighting. I think that's up to the traffic engineer. And I think we're getting outside of the area that we should be in. It's not a criteria that we review in a master plan. And again, I just think it's beyond our authority to waive lighting requirements. Although I don't think they should build any lighting out there. I just think we're overstepping our bounds in this case. So for that reason, I won't be supporting.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Okay, there's any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a similar concern. So I think for me, it's wording. We can't, like Mr. Sawhill was stating, we can't remove the requirement for lighting for the project. We could support the project in going for a variance for modified lighting, or we could support the project to resolve the requirement with lighting with traffic. So I don't know the verbiage that was stated earlier, but we can't remove a requirement for lighting. So maybe if you could, Madam Chair, if you could restate what the amendment was.
Yeah, Monica was trying to delete the lighting from the site.
Okay.
So I guess now,
I would not support that then as well. I would.
okay, so we're getting some objections, so we're going to vote, and then we can get another motion to add the next, another condition. Yeah, so we're going to vote in this amendment. Okay, the motion for the amendment did not pass. So now we move back to the original motion.
And I guess the only thing I would change then is, since we're not going to have a motion to amend, I would just like to have a few comments on record that I think this project should move forward without lighting being a requirement, that hopefully they can work out with the traffic engineer. So those would be the comments I would like to put on record. So,
Commissioner Ed Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I intend to support the motion. I think it's a great project. I know a lot of people that have visited the site over the last 15 or 20 years, and they've had a great time. They've learned a lot. The education that's there, that's provided, and the animals that are there, I think, are an asset to this community and for the visitors and the residents here. I would like to make an amendment to the motion, which is to amend the condition number 6 to state, resolve with staff the side yard setback requirements for the proposed intern housing 2. So I need to make a motion first. Should I restate that?
Yes, please.
I would like to modify condition 6 to state, resolve with staff the side yard setback requirements for the proposed intern housing number 2.
Okay, we have a motion by Ed Leonetti to resolve with staff the setback for the side yard requirements for intern housing number 2. And we have a second by Jerry Winchester. Commissioner Leonetti, will you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I think that there's some ownership issues that are being resolved right now, and I think that if we just resolve with staff rather than dictating a 25-foot yard setback, then the petitioner has the opportunity to construct what they're intending to with this plan.
Thank you. Commissioner Winchester, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I likewise think that, this is a very large piece of property, and this, to resolve those property line issues so that you can build where you want to build, which is appropriate for the animals and the people, is kind of important. And we shouldn't get stuck in 2-inch and minor details. And I've been to this site, I would have to say, more than a dozen times and taken a lot of people there, and I'm very well aware of the considerations you have there, so supportive. I would also like to state at this moment that as Commissioner Emerson mentioned, I am very much in support of you working out with the traffic department, or even to the extent of a variance, to eliminate the lighting. I think that's a pretty ridiculous thing to do to this particular piece of property and a function that is there. And we're dealing with a municipal requirement that doesn't fit the site or the use. And hence offer my help to see if you can make that happen. Thank you.
Do we have any additional discussion? No? Do we have any objections? Okay, the motion is approved. Now we go back to the original motion. And the original motion, it's with department recommendations 1 through 5, and number 6 would change to resolve with staff the side yard setback requirements for interhousing number 2, and we will delete number 7. Now we vote. Okay, the motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to case 2015-0026, context-sensitive solutions transportation project. Site plan review for the Glen Highway Muldoon Road interchange. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities is requesting plans in hand review and approval of the Glen Highway and Muldoon Road interchange improvements. The purpose of the project is to increase operations, capacity, and safety for both motorized and non-motorized traffic and freight transportation. The existing interchange does not meet current criteria for design, and the ramp intersections are over capacity during peak periods. Recent development north of the interchange has resulted in increased vehicle and pedestrian traffic that has contributed to increased congestion. Improvements recommended in the project are reconstruction of the interchange, improvements to the pedestrian and bicycle facilities, landscape, architectural, and artistic elements as appropriate, modifications to signage, striping, illumination, relocating and constructing utilities, improving ditches and drainage, and a decorative noise abatement wall. The proposed design is a diverging diamond interchange, which consists of 2 crossover intersections where through movements change to the left side of the bridge. This alternative was chosen as it accomplishes the project goals by improving both pedestrian and vehicle operations and safety. This project meets the goals and policies of the Anchorage 2020 Comprehensive Plan, Policy 36, 37, and 38, as well as the goals 1 and 4 of the 2007 Anchorage Pedestrian Plan that creates safer, more walkable city that will encourage winter pedestrian activity and improve community connectivity and pedestrian routes between neighborhoods and commercial centers. The project also meets the recommendations found in the 2010 Anchorage Bicycle Plan. The plan meets the criteria found in AMC 2115-025D. At an estimated cost of $51 million, the project's proposed landscaping elements will be concentrated along pedestrian corridors and areas of high visibility. The project will preserve existing vegetation where possible and incorporate site grading berms and landforms to improve the landscape quality. The new interchange creates safer routes for bicyclists and pedestrians by creating distinct places for them to walk and bike. Pedestrian benches, picnic tables, and trash receptacles are incorporated along the path with an emphasis of landscaping along the pedestrian corridor. The interchange has an effective use of Winter City's design principles by incorporating decorative lighted pedestrian markers that will help guide the users through the pedestrian path in the interchange. The project's landscaping types and size varies depending on their design function within the interchange. The design gives a sense of separation from the roadway while providing landscaping and architectural elements that are visually attractive. The design includes custom art features that are incorporated into decorative jersey barriers, bridge and railing design, wayfinding elements, and a decorative sound wall. The exterior faces of the bridge consists of patterned metal panels that are backlit with color-changing LEDs. With that being said, the division recommends approval of the context-sensitive solutions for the Glen Highway and Muldoon Road interchange improvements, subject to the condition found on page 5 of the staff packet. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the staff? Commissioner Sawhill?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Were there any comments received from any of the departments?
Through the chair, Mr. Sawhill, no, there was no comments received from any of the departments. I believe through the PM&E technical review process is where the comments were placed. But we did not receive any comments.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, do we have a petitioner?
Good evening. My name is Steve Noble, S-T-E-V-E-N-O-B-L-E, and I'm a project manager with Dow. Dow is a consultant that's been hired by the Department of Transportation to manage this project. With me tonight is representing DOT is Quentin Arndt. He's a project administrator. The project manager is out of town tonight. So we just have a few additional items to share with you. You got a pretty good description of the project from staff. I don't want to repeat everything there, but we're here to give you a little bit of a brief status report on where we are in the project. Then we have an educational video that we have been working on to release to the public and to use as part of our public outreach that we want to give you guys. You guys are some of the first folks to be able to see this video. So, yep, this is the premiere. Yep. So we're excited to hear your reaction from that. But we've been working on the project for a couple of years now. This project is being fast-tracked towards completion. There's this project has as close to universal support as any project I've ever worked on, and a lot of desire that we get the project done faster. The main comment that we hear from people is, how come you haven't already done the work? The capacity, safety are the two main issues here. The interchange is over at capacity much of the day, and on Saturdays, if you live and work out there, you know what I'm saying. This particular interchange design is not where we thought we were going to start when we started the project. We thought we were going to be reconstructing the partial cloverleaf, and we went through a series of workshops early in the project. We started investigating the diverging diamond interchange, and when we applied it to this location, it was the clear choice from a capacity standpoint and from a cost standpoint and from a disruption to traffic standpoint. The primary benefit to the users is that we can maintain the existing Muldoon interchange. We can maintain the existing bridge fully functioning while we're building the two adjacent bridges that will form the new overpass. So for 30,000 cars a day that are crossing over the interchange, that's a huge benefit for us and saved about $10 million in temporary facilities in the construction. That and the diverging diamond is because it converts all of the turning movements become free-flowing turning movements. There's no opposing traffic for right turns or left turns at a diverging diamond. Everything's a free-flowing movement. Signals are only the intersection of two one-way streets, so there's no turning movements at the signals. They're two-phase signals. They operate very efficiently, very quickly. And the safety that there's only about 40 of these types of interchanges in the United States, and the safety record that they've been tracking on them is superior to other types of interchanges. So we're excited about it. We know that the pedestrian non-motorized aspect of the interchange is also very important, and we feel like we've come up with a very good solution for how to achieve that, and we'll point that out to you. You'll see it in the video. And we are working towards having the project completed by mid-August of this year and then put out for bid. It'll go out for construction start hopefully next spring, and it's about a 3-season construction job. We are currently at 75% design, working towards 95% in June. Okay? So with that, I'm going to show you the video because the movie speaks a lot louder than my words do, and I'll ask Bree to come. And then Bree, our landscape architect, is going to come up and share a little bit about the concepts that we have for the landscaping that we're working on towards our design. So we'll start the video next. We couldn't get it to work on both screens, so hopefully you can turn and see this, and hopefully the quality is reasonable for our premiere showing here. So the video that you're watching actually has an audio, which is not going to be playing here, but there is an audio element that goes through and explains what the purpose and the benefits of the interchange is and how to get from here to there. One of the biggest concerns we've heard from the public is that it looks confusing because you are crossing over to the other side of the interchange compared to what you normally do. But you can imagine there's an audio at this point that explains how you get from Muldoon Road over to North Muldoon, and then if you're at North Muldoon, how you cross over to the other side. The lighting here is just not very good, so I apologize for that. But this is an animation of what the finished interchange will look like and this grading plan matches pretty close to exactly what's on our plans. The landscape elements, the pedestrian elements all match very closely to what's actually shown in our plans. So this is a very close rendition of what the interchange will look like in its finished condition. You can see where the pedestrian facilities are. Can I pause that? How do I pause that? Can you maybe back it up? I just want to show folks where the pedestrian. So you can see the one interesting thing about the diverging diamond is that there's pedestrian facilities on one side. The primary reason for this is that so this yellow line here is where the pedestrians are. So back here at Boundary, there'll be wayfinding and elements of landscaping to encourage everyone and make sure they know that they need to cross to the other side if they're going to go over the interchange. They'll go down, there's a separated facility, they'll cross both of these. These are all signalized pedestrian crossings. And so they cross over, they're on the eastern bridge, separated with a barrier from the road, and then they'll cross here. There's stairs down to that would take you underneath, or there's a circular ramp that can take you underneath as well. The primary reason we don't have anything on the other side is because if there's a pedestrian crossing this ramp or crossing this ramp, those would not be signalized crossings. There are examples of those non-signalized crossings of on-ramps done elsewhere in the United States, but it's not our first choice to do it. And we feel like from a pedestrian standpoint, we can achieve a better, more safe facility if we have all the crossings signalized, and we feel like we've put enough links to the pedestrian network that we can achieve what we're hoping for. So let's continue on here. Might as well stay up here. So this is about a 3 or 4 minute video that will have a narrative. This is posted on YouTube now with the narrative. And so you're welcome to go home and take a look at it there tonight. It is also so here you can see some of the landscape elements that you've probably reviewed in the plans, and this gives people a really good view of what the finished product will look like. This is a gateway interchange, we feel, and the department feels it's an important gateway interchange. You can see they're putting a lot more into landscaping and to the artistic elements of this interchange than they would at a typical interchange. You can see here where there's bicyclists using the shoulder, and you can see where they're separated from the pedestrians using the pedestrian facility here. Again, the left turning movements, no opposing traffic. You're just turning directly off of the through lanes. And then one of the expansions of this project is we are putting a dual lane on-ramp for Muldoon heading northbound onto the Glen Highway. So there'll be 2 lanes that will continue on around the corner, and then they'll merge. So there's about a half a mile of merge lane along the Glen Highway north of that location. This is where the sound wall is, adjacent to the trailer park here. Again, the pedestrians are crossing back there. They're coming up here, and then there's a signalized crossing at this location. Pedestrians have already crossed at this point. There's no ped crossing here. The Glen Highway will be converted to just 3 lanes. The loop around off ramps will go away. That enabled us to have shorter bridges and still provide space for the future high occupancy vehicle lanes that are proposed on the Glen Highway. Here you can see the pedestrian facility. It's nice offset buffer here. It's going to have pedestrian scale lighting the full length of the trail. There'll be kind of 12-foot high pedestrian scale lighting along here. We really want to encourage folks to use this route. We're going to have it lit so that people can see where they're going to be going, and to discourage folks from traveling where we don't want them.
I'm sorry, we're just down to 20 seconds.
Yep. It's almost done. You can see it's a nice big opening underneath the pedestrian tunnel there, similar to the Glenburgh interchange. If I only have 20 seconds, I better give it to Bree so she can tell you about the landscaping.
Hi, my name is Brianne Kiefer, Keifer.
I think we run out of time, but I'm sure someone can make you a question.
Okay.
Do we have any questions to the petitioner?
Madam Chair, if I can speak, could you tell us about the landscaping?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll just put in a statement from the artist's perspective, and then kind of how we incorporated the landscaping into that as well. So kind of the overarching theme that was to extend patterns found in nature into site infrastructure, and the artists sought to achieve this by incorporating abstractions of local flora and fauna into site-specific elements. So that can be seen in this board here, in the different structures. Some of the symbols represent spruce cones, cow parsnip leaves, and fish scales in abstracted patterns. And then the overall landscape plan was to concentrate elements along the corridor of Muldoon, and then in the spaces between Glen Highway and the on and off ramps. And I think the video showed the moundings between the Glen Highway and the on and off ramps really well, how we're going to be mounding excess fill in 3 different mounds on either side with aspen groves and large bands of shrubs that wrap around those. And then along the pedestrian corridor in general, there'll be landscape berms interdispersed with deciduous and evergreen trees, and then shrub beds at different nodes along that.
Thank you. Do we have any additional questioners to the petitioner? Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First things first, I think you guys did a good job on your packet. It was really short and simple and really easy to understand, and your boards are easy to read here, too. I have one question, and that is the pedestrian bench and table and everything that's in the middle of the interchange. I saw it briefly towards the end of the movie, and I was wondering if you could speak to it. I just have a concern of people being together that close to a bunch of pedestrians and or a bunch of cars. Maybe I just need to hear a little more context to the design.
Sure. Because the pathway is fairly long, we wanted to incorporate some benches just in case some people feel the need to sit at some point during their walk. So we will have, right now the plan is to have benches up near the interchange. I think it was at some point there we were showing a table just before, but that will be relocated down outside of the interchange near one of the paths in the northeast corner where some different races can stop there and have places to set things. So I know that like the Gold Nugget Triathlon sets up a station down there, and so that's why we've incorporated a picnic table there. Does that answer your question?
So then the table that's shown in these drawings is not going to be there, and they're just going to, I agree with benches, being midstream, that's a long ways, but I saw like 2 or 3 tables and trash cans, and I was like, oh, that looks like a place that people would congregate, and it's like, maybe that's not such a good idea.
The tables have been removed.
Okay, great, thank you. And then I do agree with the landscape themes. I think it's well designed, and incorporating existing vegetation is helpful. I appreciate the decorative fencing and railing and on the MSE patterns. Some of it, when I first looked at it, it looked like a bunch of chevrons, and I wasn't quite sure what the theme was, but with the dialogue here tonight, that helps that there's, a nature theme, and I think I read in there that it's, you guys are going to, maybe that was the other art thing. No, never mind, that was the other art one. And that's it. Thanks. Good job.
Thank you, Commissioner Leonetti. Nicole Rem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, the landscape and artwork. I commend the DOT for doing this. You don't see that a lot on some of their state bridges, so this gateway idea is just fantastic. So I really do think you guys did a great job here. I just have a couple of questions with respect to pedestrians and bicycles. I tried to watch the video while I was looking at the map, and I may have missed it. So in the P&Z comments, they talked about the at-grade crossings, and there seemed to be a few of them. And in your response, you said there were 2 traffic signals. So when I go back to H36 and H38, which show the pedestrian crossings at the crosswalks, it seems that there's 2 on each end, and that the pedestrians have to negotiate signals at both. Is that the case? There's really a signal for the exit ramp coming into the interchange, and then a signal for the through traffic?
There's a signal at this location.
Uh-huh.
And a signal at this location, but this movement here is also signalized, and so is that one.
Is the pedestrian?
These are all linked.
Okay, so is there time for the pedestrian to go from crossing the off-ramp, in front of the off-ramp in that crosswalk right there, and then coming through the through traffic?
So in this location, the reason why the pedestrian alignment is such that it's not one big long crossing here, and because there's not time during the green cycle to get from here to here. So it's perpendicular. We specifically want it takes 2 cycles for the pedestrians to cross. So there's 1 cycle to cross here. They'll walk over here. Then the next cycle they'll cross here.
Okay, that was my question. When it said 2 traffic signals, there's really 4. So. In my
That's
mind.
true. There's 2 controller cabinets.
Yeah, right. I know. So sorry. I was thinking of pedestrian.
These all function as one signal, even though there's several different approaches there. Yes.
Okay. That answers my question on the pedestrians. That's fine. With respect to the bike plan, we state that we're meeting the bike plan in our staff report, and there's a lot of hubbub going on around the bike plan right now, and what constitutes a bike lane. And are we referring to, in the bike plan, Muldoon Road from Boundary, the project is called Boundary Road to Elmendorf Air Force Base, which is actually now J-Bear, where they recommend a bike lane? If that's the case, I think you're actually planning to leave a shoulder because there's limited facilities on the south side?
Right.
Okay. So I guess my question is it a shoulder or is it a bike lane?
It's a shoulder.
Okay.
But it's being designed in a way that it can be a bike lane also. So let me explain a little bit the rationale here. That you can see there's plenty of width here for a bike lane, but the department and the municipality have not been able to come to agreement on how to handle detection of vehicle and bicycles through a bike lane through a signal. So we were directed that there was to be no bike lanes through the signals, at which point when you back them out of those and you take into consideration our project is so short and there's nothing on the other ends, there was no point in having bike lanes for a couple hundred feet in a couple locations. But it was important that we design the bridge, it was important that we design the intersection so that it could be retrofitted to be a bike lane. In addition to that, we have an additional challenge that through these crossover intersections, in order to design for the WB64 vehicle, the large design vehicle, these lanes get awfully wide on these radii here. And we did not want the truck overhang to be inside the bike lane, even though it's a shoulder, but we didn't want it to be inside the future bike lane. And so we've got a little buffer here between the shoulder and the lane, and this is essentially to allow for the overhang of, and essentially the overhang of and the turning radius of those large vehicles without having a 15 or 16 foot wide travel lane going around those corners. That's the purpose of that double line.
Okay, and that makes sense. Can you please explain to me what happens to the shoulder for the bike between, if you're heading, it's on the northbound side, right? The shoulder is on the northbound? Did I get that right?
It's on, this same cross-section exists in both directions.
Okay, so if I'm on the northbound and I'm on H35 and I'm heading north on Muldoon Road, I see there's a shoulder there. And as I turn the page to H36, I see the shoulder disappears and heads off. Or I'm narrowed into a through lane that's only 12 feet wide. Am I missing something? Where does the shoulder go for through interchange bike users? It seems to disappear in the gore.
I missed where you said that it disappeared, that you see it disappearing.
So if you go to, and I apologize, maybe I'm misinterpreting this, but from H35, page H35, North Muldoon Road, there's a shoulder there. It's not marked as the width of the shoulder.
Okay, I'm looking at H35.
So that's a shoulder on the northbound side.
Yes.
And then as you turn the page to H36, that shoulder comes off with a lane that comes off of the interchange. So where do the bikes go when that chokes down at the gore? On the next page?
This is one of the reasons why it's not a bike lane. It's
Okay.
a shoulder.
So
the shoulder does follow the off-ramp around the corner. If this were redesigned as a bike lane, then the bike lane and the gore striping would need to be changed to show the bike lane continuing through the ramp. It's the same amount of paved area that works for extending that bike lane through that ramp, but it's gore striped right now until the rest of the bike lane is installed. So what would happen is essentially there would be a dotted bike lane that would cross the ramp where it tapers off.
Okay. So, but what's going to happen is Class A riders are going to weave into that through lane and be with traffic
That's
And-
correct.
And so are you doing any signage or any kind of mitigation to alert vehicles that there's, to share the road?
At this point, we had not planned to because it's not signed or striped as a bike lane. I would need to go back and, to be honest, I'd need to go back and look at the MUTCD to see if a share the road type sign was an acceptable sign in this location.
I would actually just call Scott Thomas. It changes daily.
Yeah.
But no, these are just items that I'm picking up because I'm deep in that project. But and I'm alerted to a lot of I know a lot of bicyclists that like to use the road,
Yep.
and they're going to. And in my mind, it's educating the vehicles that the bikes are there. So if we can look into some sort of signage and consider that, I don't intend to add that as a condition. I just would like consideration for the through bikes.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Rem.
Madam Chair, if I could just stay on that topic for 1 minute and ask the petitioners, the pedestrian way through the interchange functions as, it's a multi-use trail, basically, right? People
That's
can
right. It's 10 feet wide, yes.
bike
Yes.
and run. Okay.
Actually, it's wider than that. It's at least 10. I forget it. I think it's actually a little wider.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Commissioner Condon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the rail that you've got going there. What I'm not real clear about is what these Jersey barriers look like. I mean, my concept of a Jersey barrier isn't... do you have like a representation of what these look like? Or are they just your standard, plastic or block, cement, concrete?
It's pretty much a standard form of a Jersey barrier, but then on the outside there'll be a relief to create different patterns. And so the graphic labeled bridge pedestrian railing and bridge exterior show what the pattern looks like on the outside of them.
Yes, I do remember seeing that. Okay.
Yeah.
The other question I have concerns, let's see, if you go to like either the north or the south part of this the interchange where the crossover happens, so say we go to the north, traveling north on Muldoon, we go through the crossover and we've got traffic peeling off the Glen Highway that comes to, I'm assuming it's, I believe it's a signal. Then you've got a sign there that says "Do not enter." I wish I had a pointer. But anyway, on both the north and the south, you have the crossover of the traffic, the synchronized signals, and then, so say you're continuing north, you've got traffic coming off the Glen, and it hits, if they want to go north along Muldoon, they come to an intersection.
Yes, it's this exact situation right here. This is northbound Muldoon right here.
Okay.
So here's the lanes coming off of the Glen Highway. They've got a signalized intersection. These motorists are turning left on a one-way road at this point. So they have the ability to turn left on the red because there's adequate sight distance for them to do so, or they can wait, or if it's too busy, then they'll wait for a green light to turn left.
Well, I don't think that's exactly the place that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the situation where traffic that's coming off the Glen hits, and they need to go right, okay? So if they're peeling off the Glen and they want to go north on Muldoon, you hit a stoplight, correct? It's like a 90-degree intersection. Okay, so what I'm getting at is that the big problem with these synchronized split-phase intersections is that the possibility could arise where you have traffic going the wrong way and the potential for a head-on collision. And what I see in these two locations is the possibility for people to make a right turn off of Muldoon and get onto a freeway on-ramp, or a freeway off-ramp, okay, and go the wrong direction. Okay, so what I'm wondering, can that...
So are you suggesting that these cars here would come down here and they would turn right and go down this on-ramp, off-ramp? So this is...
if we look at your diagram up here on the far right, and if you go to the... Yes. Yeah, okay, maybe you could... Yeah, maybe you could... Okay.
So this is the off-ramp. Cars are going this, they're headed this direction here, they're coming this direction here. So
Yes.
these folks, they have...
Okay, so say you're going south.
Okay.
On Muldoon.
Okay.
What worries me is that somebody going south would make a right turn onto the off-ramp from the Glen Highway. So you've got that off-ramp that hits Muldoon at roughly a 90-degree angle. And the possibility exists that, you know, especially in light of our last project that came before us, we've got, you know, tourists, international travelers who may not understand a do not enter sign. They may get the you know, the symbol, but nonetheless, it seems that if that were to sweep or merge into Muldoon at, you know, not a 90-degree angle, but at a different angle, at a sweep, that you would mitigate the possibility of somebody mistakenly turning right and entering a freeway off-ramp.
So I understand your question now. So a couple things that I'd like to say there. One is that we've been working closely with FHWA on the statistics for what is happening operationally at these types of interchanges around the country. That is not one of the more common mistakes that people are making. The more common mistake for people turning the wrong direction, frankly, are people coming up to this signal and turning right and going the wrong way up over the interchange. That's the more common situation. In our case, we prevent that issue from happening because we have a 52-degree angle of intersection of these two crossover intersections, and most of them, and that'll be the largest. That's the largest angle in the country of any of them that have been built, because most of them don't have such a big separation between the two bridges, and so they approach each other at a much tighter angle, and that is the more common mistake, that people come up to here at the right turn or at the through lane and they turn right and head down the wrong way. Coming this way and turning right is not a common mistake. It's the same situation that would exist today. I mean, if you imagine this off ramp is here and these cars are coming this direction and they approach this same movement if they were coming here. The bigger issue that we have here is that, well, there's two issues. One is that I'm probably giving you much more detail than you want, but a couple of them is we specifically are bringing this in at a very perpendicular type angle because we do not want the cars to make this turn quickly. We want them to come up and have to make a tight right turn here. It's a pedestrian crossing. We don't want them turning right quickly out into this way. We don't want it to be a ramp. We want to keep this pedestrian crossing as short as possible. And the more we angle that road, the longer that ramp, that pedestrian crossing becomes.
And I'm assuming the harder it is for people to look over their shoulder and see cars coming along.
Exactly. So if you're in this location, we're going to be putting up railings, and that's something that's not shown very clearly here, but it's not shown on our animation. But there's actually going to be a visual barrier here so that the cars that are here don't look the wrong direction. They look over their shoulder and they see no cars coming and turn right into traffic when they really should be looking down this way. So we're going to put a barrier up so they can't see the cars coming from that direction. We want them to look this direction when so we're trying to make it perpendicular so when they turn left, they're looking exactly where they need to be looking, which are these cars coming this way. Those are the cars that they have to find a gap in the traffic to enter that lane.
Okay, so the perpendicular configuration is on purpose, and you've got a good reason for doing it that way. Okay, it makes sense. I think it's a great invention in terms of traffic flow, and apparently it is working well in other places, and it's going to be a challenge for Anchorage drivers to get used to it, I'm sure. I don't think we have anything like it at this point, but I think this is a major improvement.
So what we're hearing from most places is that the learning curve on these is actually easier than most places deal with roundabouts. Actually, they're pretty straightforward. Once you're in them, they're pretty straight. You can find your way through, and then you realize, wait a minute, I just went through one of these, and you didn't really realize it. But regardless of that, we've taken great lengths on this project to make sure that we're going to have a strong educational outreach program. We have a big major public meeting scheduled for late in May. We've got a 30-second version of this that will be running on the theater screens for a couple months this fall, and then periodically through the winter, so that people who are using Takotnu and using that area will get to see that what's planned out there. We've got another 15-second release that we'll be releasing to the media. We do plan to get this out there and make as much of an educational campaign as we can.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you go back to 148, I think? I was just curious about I had it in my notes, I forgot about it earlier. The removable fences, I think, or gates, or whatever they were. Yeah, right there. So middle of the screen, as you're coming in from the left, making the up screen movement, whatever direction that is, you can see those red movable panels. I was just curious, what are they removable for?
So the Glen Highway is a major route from the port. We are raising the bridge height from 15.5 to 18.5 foot clearance, but there are still large oversized vehicles that need to get through the interchange, and either over height or over width. And those vehicles, we don't want to make them, if they use this interchange the way everybody else does, then they're headed down Muldoon Road automatically, and they can't just cross through a signalized intersection like most locations. So when those oversized vehicles get a permit to use this area, they'll come up this off ramp. These removable barriers will be removed, and they'll drive straight through this without any conflicts with any signals, and then they're off and running past the interchange. Yes.
Going over.
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Winchester?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have my normal concerns about the bicyclists, and I think this has been discussed some before, and the concern is that you've done a remarkable job of getting the pedestrians through this, which I think the roundabout is still one of my pet problems in Anchorage, because they are not very welcome for pedestrians, and certainly not for bicyclists. I mean, you take your life in your hands if you try to go through a roundabout on Dowling Road in a bicycle. And I see a little bit of the same problem here. Yes, the pedestrian way will be probably the safest way for bicyclists to get through this, because the traffic will be moving at a fairly rapid clip, and the fact that the chevrons that were brought up and having to cross traffic in order to get all the way across from Muldoon to Takotnu, you are going to have to cross traffic lanes. And I see that as almost a big sign ought to be put up. Bicyclists should use the pedestrian walkway to get across this, because otherwise we will see, I think, some serious injuries related to bicyclists trying to get to the Takotnu Center from the Muldoon area. That just is not a safe crossing that I see there. And I think it's similar to what we find in the roundabout. So I'm kind of urging DOT to figure out a way to safely get a bicyclist, an 8 or 10-year-old child that's going to go over to the Takotnu Center on a bicycle, to make sure they don't get out into those traffic lanes and try to cross traffic. And I know we got Class A bicyclists and we have the Class B and C as the kids are, but I think that's a real serious concern that I see with this, as I do with roundabouts.
Thank you. Commissioner Rem?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm looking at this frozen image, and in the site plan, I noticed that there were these removable fences that I thought were in the nose of the pedestrian zone, sort of protecting them from maybe waywardly going into the right-of-way. My concern is, we have tactile warning strips along the path to alert pedestrians that they're coming towards an intersection or a change. But then we get to these wide plaza areas at the intersection. Is there a way, are we keeping them sort of quarantined to where they could wayfind to the next crosswalk?
So the one thing I did want to say is that the railings that you used to see and probably were in this submittal on the nose here, we changed the location of the truck crossover. The truck crossover used to get off on this off-ramp and go over the nose and then down, and instead we moved it to this side, and specifically because we didn't like the railing on the nose.
Okay.
And so that's gone away in our current design. And instead we have the railing back here on this location. So
that brings up the question, with municipal facilities, you're required on, if you have a level curb line around a street curb return, you're required to provide tactile warning around that entire return so that they know they're entering a roadway. And so when you had that previous picture showed the nose of the plaza, it looked like it was level. I was just concerned with what kind of mitigation you had to keep pedestrians from going off to the right or the left, and right there, yeah. Do you have tactile warning around that so that if, like, a blind person, I realize this is ridiculous.
So
but if-
all the way around here, you mean?
Well, right. So if you're providing tactile warning, you're providing it for ADA compliance. And where are we ADA compliant at the intersection of the nose? I'm not seeing that. For a wayfinding?
Sure. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, those are all really good points, and I think something that will be incorporated into as we move towards 95%. The video.
Can you get closer to the microphone, please?
Yeah, the video isn't showing specific ADA measures, but.
And that's why I was asking the question.
No, I think those are good things to mention, definitely.
Sometimes the video is too good, and we're raising the expectation here. You guys are going to want videos for every project from now on. So.
Okay.
Do we have any additional questions? No. Can I get a motion to approve? We have a motion from Monica Emerton, and we have a second by Commissioner Nicole Rem. Commissioner Emerton, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I'll state my motion. I move to approve case 2015-0026, subject to staff condition 1 on page 5.
Commissioner Rem? Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I would like to speak to my motion. I intend to support my motion. It seems like it's going to be much improved from where it is. And then this also falls under the Anchorage 2020 Comprehensive Plan, number 36, 37, and 38, the 2007 Anchorage Pedestrian Plan, Goal 1 and 4, and the 2010 Anchorage Bicycle Plan. I think it's going to be a much improved project. It's pretty exciting to see getting over to Tacotney will be a lot easier with this. So, nice work.
Commissioner Rem, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I intend to support the motion as written. I would like to note that, just comment that they're not actually meeting the Anchorage Bicycle Plan. The bike plan calls for a bike lane, and they can't provide that. I would like to just add, and it's not a condition, it's just a consideration for pedestrian wayfinding at the noses of these plazas, these large expanses of concrete or asphalt, I'm not sure what they are. And also, in speaking to Commissioner Winchester's concerns, and also mine, of the bicyclists, and just making sure that the appropriate users are using the appropriate facilities available. And so I don't know if that's working with the DOT traffic department to find acceptable signage or wayfinding that would send Class B and C riders off to the pedestrian multi-use path. And the shoulder, I wouldn't use at all. But if we do discuss with DOT traffic what we would do at the Gore, where Class A riders are going to go through the shoulder, miss the shoulder disappears, and then they're in the traveled lane. So that's not a condition. I just would hope that you guys would take that into consideration. That's all.
Thank you. Do we have any additional discussion? Commissioner Leonetti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just add a couple of findings real quick here, and I can send them to whoever. The purpose of the project is to improve the operations capacity and safety for all the users of the interchange, including the motorized and non-motorized traffic and freight transportation. Number 2, project consists of replacing the existing rural partial cloverleaf design with a divergent diamond interchange design, which includes 2 crossover intersections where the through movement changes to the left side of the bridge. And some project elements include upgrades to meet the current standards for geometric and operational criteria, direct pedestrian route through the interchange, improved pedestrian and bicycle facilities, light columns with bridge markers and pedestrian markers, MSE walls with decorative panels, removable barriers with decorative panels, and decorative fence and bridge exterior. Thank you.
Do we have any additional discussion? No. Thank you. Now we get to vote. The motion is approved, subject to condition number 1. Thank you. Now we have under public hearings, I need a motion to postpone case 2014-0187. We have a motion from Nicole Rem and a second by Monica Emerton. And I don't think we have any additional reports from the staff. Okay. The motion has passed. And then can we get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I just had one question or comment. My mic's on. So in the past, we've had a lot of conversations about certain project elements, and we tend to go down the list of people that push their button, and a lot of the elements get brought up again 2 or 3 times. I'm guilty of it. And tonight, I just chimed in when I thought I should chime in instead of waiting. I thought about, in the age of no computers, how did somebody do it, right? They just spoke up. So I think that if everybody's okay with that, that I'm certainly fine with it if I'm asking questions, if somebody chimes in on the same topic, just as general flow of things that might go smoother, quicker, if we all try to do that.
If there's any objections or comments from you? Okay.
Cool.
So can we get a motion to adjourn the meeting? We have a motion to adjourn the meeting by Nicole Rem and a second by Monica Emerton. Thank you.